Swiss Frankie.
Yeah, full tribe in the building. Full tribe static addict. Melchizedek media. Melchizedek music.
www.swissfrankie.com.
Stay focused. Yeah, how what we choose, we worship in spirit and truth. Stay focused, don't be a fool. Study to show thyself approved. Stay focused, it's for like blood in my chest. The word manifested in flesh. Stay focused, Hebrew we got next. I preach the Melchizedek. Stay focused. Yeah, how what we choose, we worship in spirit and truth. Stay focused, don't be a fool. Study to show thyself approved. Stay focused, it's for like blood in my chest. The word manifested in flesh. Stay focused, Hebrew we got next. So never abandon your post.
Keep your eyes on the prize. I'm not talking about no dollar sign. The kingdom's at hand, that's the plan, my man. Spiritual gifts is what I store up. Waiting for the sun to show up. Then Babylon gon' burn up, and them gold streets gon' turn up. There'll be love for thy neighbor, will be heavenly favor. Got you love's what you get when you live in the script. So tune in to this vibration. We from his holy nation, here to give words to the ears that hear. Screaming Yahshua's coming till he appears. Cry loud and spare not bruise. Now that scripture strong in the faith in this heavenly race. Washed by the blood of Yahweh Shah, that's grace.
Stay focused. Yeah, how what we choose, we worship in spirit and truth. Stay focused, don't be a fool. Study to show thyself approved. Stay focused, it's for like blood in my chest. The word manifested in flesh. Stay focused, Hebrew we got next. I preach the Melchizedek. Stay focused. Yeah, how what we choose, we worship in spirit and truth. Stay focused, don't be a fool. Study to show thyself approved. Stay focused, it's for like blood in my chest. The word manifested in flesh. Stay focused, Hebrew we got next. So never abandon your post.
One nation under God. One nation under God. One nation under God.
Did you know that the concept of there being only one God is a fairly new concept? Today, the majority of the world follows some form of Abrahamic faith. These religions and their leaders have recently come to the agreement to teach that there is only one God on this earth, that different sects follow different ceremonies and rituals, but ultimately they all worship the same God. But is that true? And is that what the Bible really teaches? Every nation or race has its own culture. Every culture has their own gods. Every culture has their own creation story as well as an end-day story, given to their fathers from their gods. The children of every nation mostly followed the gods of their fathers. Some might go astray like Abraham, but for the most part, people worship the gods of their fathers. People tend to remain loyal to the gods that they believe has blessed their lands, crops, and weather. But most importantly, they remain loyal to the gods who gave them victory over their enemies. Whether that enemy was a giant, a monster, a near impossible feat, or another nation's peoples and gods. In times past, it was understood that every nation had its own god. And if my race or people conquered yours, it was because my God was greater than yours, and that my God had delivered you into my hands. During the time of Ahaz, king of Judah, this was demonstrated by the king of Assyria. He boldly told the citizens of Judea to not hearken to the king when he assured them that Yahuwah wouldn't let the Assyrians overcome them. Let's take a look at that story. 2 Kings chapter 18, starting at verse 28. Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language, and spake, saying, Hear the word of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus saith the king, Let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you out of his hand. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in Yahuwah, saying, Yahuwah will surely deliver us, and this city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, Make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me, and then eat ye every man of his own vine, and every one of his own fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of oil olive and of honey, that ye may live and not die. And hearken not unto Hezekiah when he persuadeth you, saying, Yahuwah will deliver us. Hath any of the gods of the nations delivered at all his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and of Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Eva? Have they delivered Samaria out of mine hand? Who are they among all the gods of the countries that have delivered their country out of mine hand, that Yahuwah should deliver Jerusalem? 2 Chronicles chapter 32, starting at verse 10. Thus saith Sennacherib, king of Assyria, Whereon do ye trust, that ye abide in the siege in Jerusalem? Doth not Hezekiah persuade you to give over yourselves to die by famine and by thirst, saying, Yahuwah our Elohim shall deliver us out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Hath not the same Hezekiah taken away his high places and his altars, and commanded Judah and Jerusalem, saying, Ye shall worship before one altar, and burn incense upon it? Know ye not what I and my fathers have done unto all the people of other lands? Were the gods of the nations of those lands anyways able to deliver their lands out of mine hand? 2 Chronicles chapter 28, starting at verse 22. And in the time of his distress did he trespass yet more against Yah. This is that king Ahaz. He sacrificed unto the gods of Damascus, which smote him. And he said, Because the gods of the kings of Syria helped them, therefore will I sacrifice to them, that they may help me. But they were the ruin of him and of all Israel. And Ahaz gathered together the vessels of the house of Elohim, and cut it in pieces, the vessels of the house of Elohim, and shut up the doors of the house of Yahuwah. And he made him altars in every corner of Jerusalem, and in every several city of Judah he made high places to burn incense unto other gods, and provoked to anger Yahuwah, Elohim of his fathers. Ahaz was so shook and defeated after his encounters with the king of Assyria that he started to make sacrifices to his oppressor's god, figuring that the gods of Assyria might help him like they helped the Assyrians. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Every ancient culture and civilization has a story of an Armageddon, the battle of the gods, the apocalypse, or a Ragnarok, where the gods, their offsprings, and their followers will have a final battle. Just like Ragnarok is the Norsemen's understanding of end-time events, the end times written of in the Bible is that of the Hebrews, given by their God to their fathers, Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel, who is not the Elohim of the Norsemen, or any other nation of people for that matter. Why would anyone serve the same God as their oppressors willingly? It's one thing to be forced into worshiping your oppressor's God, like how Nebuchadnezzar forced everyone to worship his God, but to voluntarily worship the gods of the people who you know are your enemies is insane. It's embarrassing, and it shows you to be a coward and without power. What's an even more interesting question is, why would someone want their enemies to worship their God? Some believe that the more worship a god receives, the more powerful he becomes. TV series like American Gods demonstrate this. The power of the human mind can make things manifest if it's believed hard enough. But what if there were people whose God was the God of gods and doesn't need worship to make him powerful? How do you conquer those people? The Gentile nations learned how to deal with the Israelites very fast. They were fresh out of Egypt, but yet in their own land, when Balaam, the Edomite priest, was told by Yahuwah himself. Balaam was approached by Balak, the Moabite king, with a request to curse the children of Israel. Knowing that Yahuwah was the God of Balaam's grandfather Isaac, that maybe Balaam can entreat Yahuwah to do so. Balak, who had his own God, needed someone who knew how to invoke Yahuwah, so he sought Balaam. After several failed attempts to curse Israel, Yahuwah gave Balaam a hint on how to achieve his goal. The book of Numbers, chapter 23, starting at verse 16. And Yahuwah met Balaam, and put a word in his mouth, and said, Go again unto Balak, and say thus. And when he came to him, behold, he stood by his burnt offering, and the princes of Moab with him. And Balak said unto him, What hath Yahuwah spoken? And he took up his parable, and said, Rise up, Balak, and hear, hearken unto me, thou son of Zippor. Yahuwah is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? Behold, I have received commandment to bless, and he hath blessed, and I cannot reverse it. He hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither hath he seen perverseness in Israel. Yahuwah his Elohim is with him, and the shout of a king is among them. Yahuwah brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, What hath Yahuwah wrought? Balaam learned that as long as sin was not found in Jacob, that no enchantment or divination shall prosper against Israel. So now the Gentiles knew that if they could get the children of Israel to sin against the Elohim of their fathers, that the Gentiles would then be able to curse Israel. And that's exactly what they did. The book of Numbers, chapter 25, starting at verse 1. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat, and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor. And the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Israel. And Yahuwah said unto Moshe, Take all the heads of the people, and hang them up before Yahuwah against the sun, that the fierce anger of Yahuwah might be turned away from Israel. And Moshe said unto the judges of Israel, Slay ye every one his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moshe, and in the sight of all of the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation, and took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent, and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel, and those that died in the plague were 24,000. 24,000 Israelites died, and Balak didn't have to lift a sword. Once he learned how to curse Israel, he just sent the daughters of Moab to seduce the sons of Israel, and mission accomplished. They called the people unto the sacrifices of their God, and the people did eat. How do you imagine this happening? I imagine seemingly innocent conversations like, Would you like to come to our St. Patrick's Day party? Or, Hey, would you like to come to our Saturnalia ceremonies? Or even, You should come out to our Samhain festivities. We just put on costumes and party. It's fun. You should come. It might seem innocent to you, but how does it look to your God? This is why Yahuwah said not to give your sons and daughters to marry the other nations. Exodus chapter 34, verse 12 reads, Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God. For Yahuwah, whose name is jealous, is a jealous Elohim, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods. And one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. And thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make their sons go a whoring after their gods. The other nations have their own gods, and their God is not our God. Yahuwah chose Jacob out of all the nations on the earth, and we do not have the same God as the other nations. Deuteronomy chapter 32 makes that very clear. For Yahuwah's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found them in a desert land and in the waste howling wilderness. He led them about. He instructed them. He kept them as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, take them, beareth them on her wings. So Yahuwah alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields. And he made him to suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flint rock, butter of kine, and milk of sheep, with fat of lambs, and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats, with the fat of kidneys of wheat. And thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. But Yeshurun waxed fat, and kicked. Thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook Yahuwah, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to Yahuwah, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten Yahuwah that formed thee. He continues in verse 26, stating this: I said, I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and Yahuwah have not done all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. How should one chase 1,000, and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock has sold them, and Yahuwah had shut them up? For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. Verse 36 reads, For Yahuwah shall judge his people, and repent himself for his servants, when he seeth that their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left. And he shall say, Where are their gods, their rock in whom they trusted, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you, and be your protection. Their rock isn't our rock. This was understood up until recent history. People knew that other nations had other gods. Today, we pretend as if these gods were fake and made of wood and stone. But it was the idols that represented a god that was made of wood and stone. But the God is real. Enoch says that the stars of heaven were watchers and angels. The Bible calls them the host of heaven. The Gentiles call them the gods. The king of Israel was trying to get Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, to join him in a war against Assyria. The book of 2 Chronicles gives us an insight on who are the hosts of heaven. The Most High was looking for someone to entice Ahab, and here's what happened according to the prophet Micah. 2 Chronicles chapter 18, starting at verse 18. Again he said, Therefore hear the word of Yahuwah. I saw Yahuwah sitting upon his throne, and all the host of heaven standing on his right hand and on his left. And Yahuwah said, Who shall entice Ahab, king of Israel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one spake, saying after this manner, and another saying after that manner. Then there came out a spirit and stood before Yahuwah, and said, I will entice him. And Yahuwah said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And Yahuwah said, Thou shalt entice him, and thou shalt also prevail. Go out, and do even so. Now therefore, behold, Yahuwah hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of these thy prophets, and Yahuwah hath spoken evil against thee. These hosts of heavens are living beings, or some class of angels. These angels were worshipped by the nations, or Gentiles, including the northern kingdom, who made golden calves at the time of the split. Jeroboam was worried that the northern kingdom would go sacrifice in Jerusalem after the split of the kingdom. Jerusalem, at the time, was the only place to sacrifice, and if the northern kingdom had to go there for every feast, he was worried that they might join themselves back to the southern kingdom and he would lose his kingship. 1 Kings chapter 12 verse 26. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. If this people go up to do sacrifices in the house of Yahuwah at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto Yahuwah, even unto Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they shall kill me, and go again to Rehoboam, king of Judah. Whereupon the king took counsel, and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. What Jeroboam was doing was setting up the northern kingdom to worship the angels or the hosts of heaven. Remember, he didn't want the people to turn back to Yahuwah. 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 13. Yet Yahuwah testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers, that did not believe in Yahuwah their Elohim. And they rejected his statutes, and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity, and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom Yahuwah had charged them that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of Yahuwah their Elohim, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshiped all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. The northern kingdom worshipped the hosts of heaven since its conception. By the time Ahab, king of Israel, was trying to recruit Jehoshaphat, king of Judah's help, he was still worshiping the hosts of heaven. 2 Kings chapter 21, starting at verse 1. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 50 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hephzibah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, after the abominations of the heathen, whom Yahuwah cast out before the children of Israel. For he built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed. And he reared up altars for Baal, and made a grove, as did Ahab, king of Israel, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. And he built altars in the house of Yahuwah, of which Yahuwah said, in Jerusalem will I put my name. Moshe warned the children of Israel in the wilderness to beware of worshiping these angels. He also told them that these angels / gods were given to the nations to worship. Here's what Moshe said. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, starting at verse 15. Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that Yahuwah spake unto you in Horeb, lest ye corrupt yourselves, and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun, and the moon, and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them, and serve them, which Yahuwah thy Elohim have divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. But Yahuwah have taken you, and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as ye are this day. Moshe said that the hosts of heaven were divided to the nations, and Yahuwah took Israel as his inheritance. Using line upon line, we can go back 1,000 years before Moshe to see how that happened. Deuteronomy 32 tells us to remember the days of old. What exactly did he want us to remember? Let's look. Deuteronomy chapter 32, starting at verse 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, And they will tell thee, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. What is this talking about? What was the number of the children of Israel? This is referring to the number of Israelites that came into Egypt. The book of Exodus chapter 1 verse 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali. Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. So Yahuwah divided the sons of Adam into 70 nations when precepting Deuteronomy 32 with Exodus 1. Well, when did the Most High divide the sons of Adam, one might ask? All of this took place at the Tower of Babel, where the Most High divided the sons of Adam into 70 nations and appointed the host of heaven as gods over each one of those nations. Let's start with the book of Genesis to get a general look or a zoomed out view of this event. Genesis chapter 11, starting at verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city, and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And Yahuwah came down to see the city, and the tower, which the children of men builded. And Yahuwah said, Behold, the people was one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and therefore confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahuwah scattered them abroad from thence, upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because Yahuwah did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did Yahuwah scatter them abroad, upon the face of all the earth. Now, let's go to the book of Jasher and get a zoomed-in view so we can see the exact amount of angels that came down to the Tower of Babel with Yahuwah. The book of Jasher, chapter 9, starting at verse 31. And they built the tower and the city, and they did this thing daily, until many days and years were elapsed. And Yahuwah said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, Come, let us descend and confuse their tongues, that one man shall not understand the language of his neighbor. And they did so unto them. And from that day following, they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builder took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone, which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, that he would die. Deuteronomy says that he divided the sons of Adam according to the numbers of Israel, and that he also divided the host of heavens unto all the nations under the whole heaven. That number of Israel was 70. Jasher tells us that there were 70 hosts with the Most High. Putting them all together tells us that he divided the sons of Adam into 70 nations and appointed 70 angels over them. The book of Jubilees confirms there being 70 nations, bringing it all home. The book of Jubilees, chapter 44, verse 33. And all the souls of Jacob, which went into Egypt, were 70 souls. These are his children and his children's children, in all 70. But 5 died in Egypt before Joseph, and had no children. And in the land of Canaan, 2 sons of Judah died, and Onan, and they had no children. And the children of Israel buried those who perished, and they were reckoned among the 70 Gentile nations. This is what was to be remembered in Deuteronomy, because today we forget that the other nations has their own gods. The story of Jonah let us know this to be true. When the storm fell upon the ship that Jonah tried to escape on, the shipmaster told every man to pray to his God. Once they found out that it was Jonah's God who was doing this, they sacrificed to Yahuwah. The book of Jonah, chapter 1, starting at verse 1. Now the word of Yahuwah came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of Yahuwah, and went down to Joppa. And he found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof, and he went down into it, to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of Yahuwah. But Yahuwah sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. Then the mariners were afraid, and cried every man unto his God, and cast forth the wares that were in the ship into the sea, to lighten it of them. But Jonah was gone down into the sides of the ship, and he lay, and was fast asleep. So the shipmaster came to him, and said unto him, What meanest thou, O sleeper? Arise, call upon thy God, if so be that Yahuwah will think upon us, that we perish not. And they said every one to his fellow, Come, and let us cast lots, that we may know for whose cause this evil is upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell upon Jonah. Then said they unto him, Tell us, we pray thee, for whose cause this evil is upon us? What is thine occupation? And whence comest thou? What is thy country? And of what people art thou? And he said unto them, I am an Hebrew, and I fear Yahuwah, the God of heaven, which hath made the sea and the dry land. Then were the men exceedingly afraid, and said unto him, Why hast thou done this? For the men knew that he fled from the presence of Yahuwah, because he told them. Then said they unto him, What shall we do unto thee, that the sea may be calm unto us? For the sea wrought, and was tempestuous. And he said unto them, Take me up, and cast me forth into the sea. So shall the sea be calm unto you. For I knew that for my sake this great tempest is upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring it to the land, but they could not. For the sea wrought, and was tempestuous against them. Wherefore they cried unto Yahuwah, and said, We beseech thee, O Yahuwah, we beseech thee, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not upon us innocent blood. For thou, O Yahuwah, hast done as it pleased thee. So they took up Jonah, and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from her raging. Then the men feared Yahuwah exceedingly, and offered a sacrifice unto Yahuwah, and made vows. Every nation having their own God was common knowledge. Like I said, nations knew that if my people conquered your people, it is because my God is greater than yours. The book of Daniel let us know that some of these gods are stronger than others. Daniel chapter 10 speaks on Daniel having an encounter with an angel dispatched to him, who was held up for 3 weeks by the god of Persia. Here's a look at that. The book of Daniel chapter 10, starting at verse 2. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. And in the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone, and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet heard I the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. And behold, an hand touched me, which set me upon my knees, and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee I am now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. The Greeks, Romans, Hindus, Egyptians, Sumerians, Babylonians, and Norsemen all spoke of the gods in heaven and how they manipulate the lives of man for their pleasure. The Hebrews knew of these gods, but they also knew that these hosts of heaven were the other nations' gods, and that Israel's God was the other nations' God's God. How else could he appoint them to be gods over the Gentiles? The book of Nehemiah chapter 9 verse 6 reads, Thou, even thou art master alone. Thou hast made heaven, the heaven of heavens, with all their hosts, the earth and all the things that are therein, the seas and all that is therein, and thou preservest them all. And the host of heaven worshipeth thee. Our rock is their rock's rock. Although some of their gods have more might than others, our God rules over and judges them all. Psalms chapter 82 verse 1. Yahuwah standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. The gods of Egypt learned this when the Most High made war with them. The book of Exodus chapter 12, starting at verse 12. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yahuwah. This is why the other gods hate Israel, and have gotten their worshippers to get Israel to worship them. Like Baal Peor had Balak and Balaam do. They do so in attempts to curse and destroy Israel, and their people obey their gods. So much so that the Most High gave them a compliment on their loyalty to their gods. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 2, verse 11. Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. He asks, has a nation changed their gods? And the answer is no. Even the Gentiles who pretend to worship our God hasn't even left their gods. They pretend that their holidays celebrate Yah and Yahshua, but they really are still celebrating their gods of old. And that's because they are loyal to their gods, like we should be loyal to ours. The Gentiles have been trying to get us to worship their gods since we left Egypt. They went from openly inviting us to worship their God to hiding their gods behind holidays. And now they want us to believe that there is only one God. So the next time the Gentiles ask you to participate in their rituals, remember the days of old and look that heathen in his eyes and politely tell them, Thank you, family, for tuning in to this lesson. Please stay safe, stay prayed up, and if you don't do anything else, stay focused.
Stay focused. Yeah, how we choose, we worship in spirit and truth. Stay focused. Don't be a fool. Study to show thyself approved. Stay focused. It's for like blood in my chest. The word manifested in flesh. Stay focused. Hebrew, we got next. I preach the Mikhails and eggs. Stay focused. Yeah, how we choose, we worship in spirit and truth. Stay focused. Don't be a fool. Study to show thyself approved. Stay focused. It's for like blood in my chest. The word manifested.